Hello and welcome to day 12 of our 40 days in the Gospel of John. We are in John chapter 5 and pretty much covering the second half of that chapter. I don't know if you've met families that are close. So you hang around a family, maybe it's a relationship between a couple or the parents with their children or just a whole big family, and you see a close family. They get on well. They have a laugh together. They seem to understand each other. Maybe you're one of those families. Maybe that's the family you've been part of. I remember when our children were young and some of their friends would come over from school to our house. They were pretty amazed that you ate dinner at the same time as your parents and you all sat around the dinner table and you talked to each other. That was pretty normal for us, but it seemed to be a bit odd for some of my children's friends that the family was that close. Well, in John 5, it's one of those places in the Gospel of John where John brings to life and helps us hear the words of Jesus as he speaks about how close he is with the Father. Let me pick up on a couple of verses that Jesus says. In verse 19, he says, "I tell you the truth, the Son," he's talking about himself, "can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does." He's talking about how he only does what his Father says for him to do. He says again in verse 30, he says, "I can do nothing on my own. I judge as God tells me. Therefore my judgment is just because I carry out the will of the one who sent me, not my own will." It's fascinating. Jesus seems to help them understand that it's not that Jesus wants to do something and God tells them to do another thing, but they're so close that the will of the Father is his will. I know we live in a world where you might want to do something, but if someone else suggests you do it, it's like, well, I'm not going to do it because you told me to do it. I want to do it because I want to do it. Jesus isn't like that. He's like, what the Father wants is what I want, and where he wants to go is where I want to go, and what he tells me to do, I do it. They're that close. It means something particularly special about Jesus' identity. Jesus is hanging around people who don't approve of him, don't appreciate what he's doing. The religious leaders want to criticize him and have a go at him. And in verse 41, he says, "Your approval means nothing to me." There's something about knowing that you have the approval of the Father, that he is shining upon you. It gives Jesus such a secure identity. And what's wonderful here is in verse 26, Jesus says, "The Father has life in himself, and he has granted the same life-giving power to his Son." As we look at the relationship between the Father and the Son, we could also talk about the Spirit, but in this bit it's the Father and the Son. We see this closeness of the Trinity. And the invitation from Jesus says that the Father has life-giving power. He's given it to the Son for me to invite you into this same wonderful relationship. This same relationship that as the Father and the Son are close, he says you can be part of that family too. And so for those of us who have become part of God's family, the challenge for us today is, what's the Father telling us to do? What's he whispering? Where's he leading? Where's he guiding? And are we listening and following? Have a great day.